Rolap actually reveal about his plans for the tour? Why is Rory's backing so significant right now? And what do these proposed changes mean for players, fans, and the future of professional golf? Let's start with the context that makes this moment so important. The PGA Tour has been navigating one of the most turbulent periods in its history over the past 3 years. Live Golf's emergence forced the tour to reconsider everything from prize money to schedule structure. The proposed framework agreement with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund created uncertainty about what professional golf would look like going forward. And throughout all of this chaos, the tour needed leadership that could navigate complexity while building consensus among players, sponsors, and stakeholders with competing interests. Enter Brian Rolap, who officially became PGA Tour CEO earlier this year after serving as the NFL's Executive Vice President of Media and Business Operations. His background in structuring media deals and managing complex sports organizations made him an interesting choice, but the real test would be whether he could articulate a clear vision for where the tour needs to go. And this week, ahead of the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass, Rolap gave his most detailed public comments yet about the themes and ideas currently being explored. Speaking to media on Wednesday, Rolap outlined several areas where the tour is actively considering structural changes. While he didn't announce specific policies or timelines, he made it clear that discussions are happening around schedule adjustments, competitive format evolution, and ways to make the tour's product more compelling for both players and fans. The language was measured and careful, exactly what you'd expect from a CEO navigating sensitive territory, but the message was unmistakable. Change is coming, and it's going to be significant. What makes this announcement particularly noteworthy is that Rory Mcllroy publicly endorsed Rolap's direction almost immediately. Speaking to reporters ahead of Thursday's opening round, Rory revealed that he'd already spoken with the new CEO earlier in the week and that Rolap had walked him through everything he planned to say publicly. That kind of direct communication between tour leadership and its most prominent player suggests a level of coordination and strategic alignment that hasn't always existed. If you're interested in where the PGA Tour is heading, hit that like button and subscribe. Because Rory's comments reveal more than just polite support. Rory's assessment was direct and positive. He said what Rolap outlined represents a really good direction for where the tour should be going. Coming from someone who served on the PGA Tour Policy Board and understands the internal politics better than almost any active player, that endorsement carries significant weight. Rory isn't just being diplomatic or supportive of new leadership. He's genuinely aligned with the vision Rolap is articulating, which suggests the changes being discussed reflect input from top players rather than being imposed from above. But Rory also acknowledged the complexity of what Rolap is trying to accomplish. He said Rolap has gotten into the job and realized how difficult it is to turn this big ship around, noting that there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen and a lot of opinions to navigate. That's a remarkably honest assessment of the challenges facing tour leadership. The PGA Tour isn't a simple organization with a clear chain of command. It's a member-driven entity where player interests, sponsor relationships, television partnerships, and tournament obligations all create competing pressures that make major structural changes incredibly difficult. The fact that Rolap is moving forward with significant proposals despite those challenges tells you he's been given a mandate to act rather than just maintain the status quo. And the fact that Rory is publicly supporting those efforts suggests that top players believe change is necessary even if the process is uncomfortable. What specific changes are being discussed? Rolap didn't provide detailed proposals, but the themes he outlined give strong hints about where things are heading. Schedule adjustments are clearly on the table, which could mean fewer events, more strategic breaks, or a restructured calendar that better aligns with major championships and international competitions. Competitive format changes are also being explored, which might include different tournament structures, adjusted field sizes, or new qualification criteria that reward consistent performance. The driving force behind these discussions is the recognition that professional golf's product needs to evolve. Television ratings have been inconsistent. Fan engagement metrics show that casual viewers struggle to follow a tour with 40-plus events spread across an entire year. And younger audiences accustomed to more compressed, dramatic sporting events find it difficult to invest in golf's slower-paced, longer-format competitions. Rolap's NFL background is relevant here because the NFL has mastered the art of creating compelling weekly drama within a structured season. While golf can't and shouldn't try to replicate football's model exactly, there are principles around schedule compression, regular season importance, and playoff drama that could translate to improving the PGA Tour's competitive structure. What's particularly interesting about Rory's public support is the timing. He gave these comments while dealing with a nagging back injury that has him uncertain about defending his Players' Championship title. Even while managing his own physical concerns and tournament preparation, Rory made time to speak with Rolap and then publicly endorse his vision. That suggests Rory views this leadership moment as critically important for the tour's future, important enough to prioritize even when his own immediate competitive focus should be elsewhere. The relationship between tour leadership and top players has been strained at times during the Live conflict. Some players felt blindsided by how the tour handled negotiations with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. Others questioned whether their input was genuinely valued or just solicited for appearances. Rolap appears to be working intentionally to rebuild trust by communicating directly with influential players and incorporating their perspectives before announcing major changes. That approach makes strategic sense because any significant structural changes will require player buy-in to succeed. The PGA Tour is member-driven, which means players have real power through policy board representation and voting rights. If top players oppose proposed changes, implementation becomes nearly impossible. By getting Rory's public endorsement early, Rolap is signaling to other players that at least one of the tour's most respected voices believes the direction is right. What happens next will depend on how quickly Rolap can move from themes and discussions to concrete proposals that players can evaluate and vote on. The tour's history is filled with proposed changes that got discussed extensively but never implemented because building consensus proved too difficult. Rolap's challenge is turning his vision into actionable policies that survive the complex political process required to change PGA Tour structure. Rory's comments suggest he's optimistic that Rolap has the skills and mandate to navigate that complexity. Part is something nobody will forget. What actually happened on that 11th tee that made everything collapse so suddenly? Why are doctors calling this injury timing the cruelest in golf? And could we have just witnessed the moment that derailed Collin Morikawa's entire 2026 season? Let's be brutally honest about the timing here, because that's what makes this situation so devastating and shocking. Collin Morikawa arrived at the Players' Championship this week as one of the hottest players on the entire PGA Tour. He'd won the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am last month for his 7th career Tour victory. He followed that with top 10 finishes at both the Genesis Invitational and Arnold Palmer Invitational. His ball striking was absolutely dialed in. His confidence was sky high. And heading into the Players, golf's unofficial 5th major, Morikawa was listed as one of the pre-tournament favorites alongside Scottie Scheffler and Rory Mcllroy. This was supposed to be Collin Morikawa's moment. The Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass, the PGA Tour's flagship event with a $25 million purse and status that rivals actual majors. The kind of tournament that can define a season and cement a player's legacy among the sport's elite. Morikawa had all the momentum, all the form, and all the expectation pointing toward a massive week. And then, after completing just one hole, it all disappeared in the most brutal way imaginable. Thursday morning started normally for Morikawa. He teed off on the back 9, starting at the par 4 10th hole at TPC Sawgrass. The conditions were perfect, the crowd was energized, and Morikawa looked composed and ready. He played the 10th hole cleanly, making a routine par that suggested he was locked in and ready to compete. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing indicated what was about to happen. He walked to the 11th tee, the par 5 that's one of the best scoring opportunities on the entire course, a hole where Morikawa would typically be thinking birdie or eagle to jumpstart his round. And then everything collapsed in approximately 10 seconds. Morikawa took a practice swing at the 11th tee, a routine motion he's made tens of thousands of times in his professional career, and mid-swing, something went catastrophically wrong in his back. The immediate reaction told the the entire story. Morikawa stopped mid-motion and immediately reached for his lower back with his right arm, his face contorting in pain that was visible even from the gallery behind him. If you're shocked by this devastating injury, smash that like button and subscribe, because what happened next is even more heartbreaking. Morikawa didn't even attempt to hit his tee shot. He didn't try to stretch it out or test whether he could continue. He immediately knew something was seriously wrong. He walked straight to a nearby golf cart, removed his hat, and placed both arms on his head in what looked like a combination of pain management and complete disbelief at what was happening. His caddy stood nearby looking equally stunned, and within minutes, tournament officials and medical personnel arrived to assess the situation. The decision to withdraw came almost immediately. Morikawa was driven off the course in the cart, his tournament over after completing just one hole, and the shock on his face as he left TPC Sawgrass is an image that's already been shared millions of times across every social media platform. This wasn't an athlete making a calculated decision to be cautious. This was someone whose body had betrayed him at the absolute worst moment on the biggest stage, with everything aligned for potential greatness. The injury is being described as a back injury, though specific details about severity, exact location, and recovery timeline haven't been made public yet. But the way it happened, during a simple practice swing rather than under the force and torque of an actual shot, suggests this could be something significant. Muscle strains, disc issues, nerve impingement, all of these are possibilities that could sideline Morikawa for weeks or even months depending on severity. What makes this timing so particularly cruel is where Morikawa was in his season arc. This wasn't a player limping through tournaments trying to find form. This was a two-time major champion playing the best golf of his entire year, building momentum toward the Masters in April, positioning himself for a massive 2026 campaign. One practice swing just erased all of that instantly. The win at Pebble Beach? Doesn't matter now. The top 10s at Genesis and Bay Hill? Meaningless if he can't compete. Everything he'd built over the past 2 months disappeared in one horrifying moment. The immediate reaction from other players has been supportive but clearly shaken. Multiple tour pros posted messages on social media expressing devastation for Morikawa and hoping for a quick recovery. But you could sense the underlying fear in those messages too. Every professional golfer knows how fragile bodies are, how quickly injuries can derail everything, and how terrifying it is to watch it happen to someone else because it reminds them it could happen to them at any moment. Scottie Scheffler, who's paired in a group that went off shortly after Morikawa withdrew, was asked about it during his post-round interview. His response was genuine and emotional. He said watching Colin have to withdraw like that was gut-wrenching because everyone knows how much work goes into building the kind of form Colin has.